In this video we will be concerned with performance management systems. Performance management is the management of employees and the continuous assessment of their performance. So it's looking into the performance of employees, how they're functioning within the business, their skill acquisition, their way they use their skills, their competencies, the way they apply themselves to the tasks that confront them. And it's trying to measure and evaluate their performance. HRM practice requires that line managers and employees work together to plan, monitor and review employees' performance. So the line managers are really the interface between management and the employees. Line management is the contact point between the employees and management. And the line managements work with the employees to plan, to monitor and to review employees' performance and to make recommendations and supportive suggestions to the employees how they can go about their work more effectively. So there is a greater emphasis on issues like productivity and quality, but also satisfaction from the job and motivation and areas of that type. The key element to performance management is the setting and reviewing of work objectives. It's important that the employees know exactly what's expected of them. They need to have the goals set out, and this needs to be done in consultation with the management. And of course the goals should be realistic and they should be achievable. We'll talk about that later. Employees are reviewed against their targets and their contribution made towards organizational goals. So the employees are working towards targets that have been agreed with management. The targets themselves subscribe to the achievement of the overall organizational goals. So the employees are working towards the organizational goals. It's a transitive relationship. They're working on particular projects, but those projects and those activities are in turn enabling the organization to achieve its ultimate goals, its corporate goals. A performance management system must be specific to the employee and the job. So the performance management system should identify the nature of the work that's been carried out, the task that's under consideration, and look at the issues associated with it in terms of its complexity, its achievability, what is a reasonable effort, what can be expected over a given time period, and so on. And these should be spoken about with the employee. The employee should be informed and consulted and should be aware of what is the task and what is expected. In accordance with the organization's strategy, goals and culture. So it's important that the particular job subscribes to the achievement of the overall organizational strategy, but also it fits in with the organizational culture on how it's to be done, how the tasks should be undertaken. The culture may be one which is very supportive of the employees and may make every effort to ameliorate the very hard work associated or the extra effort that's required through the use of technology or towards introducing flexible working or in some way enabling the employees to achieve the tasks without inordinate effort. Practical and easy to understand and provide an overview of employee performance. So the performance management system should be practical. It should be related to outcomes and it should be easy to understand, and of course thereby provide an overview of the employee performance. So the performance management system should not be very complex. It shouldn't be obscure. It should be very transparent. In fact, quite the opposite. It should be very transparent, should be very easily understood, it should be practical. It should also be a collaborative approach and effective communications established between employees and management. It should be one in which the employees and management are able to discuss the issues, talk about what is reasonable, talking about the approach to be adopted, the time scale, what could be expected, what issues could be confronted, what problems could be confronted, and how the problems may be dealt with. So it's a system where performance management is inclusive. It's inclusive of all involved. So there must be monitoring and there must be measuring of results, goal setting and reviewing progress. It's important that progress is measured, both for the management and for the employee. The employee wants to know how well they're doing, how much progress they've made. The employee's self-esteem will be affected by the amount of effort that they have put in. If it's not recognized, then it can be demoralizing. It can be upsetting to the employee. Whereas if the employee makes very good effort and is making good progress, then simply a word of congratulations or a word of thank you can be really appreciated and can again add to the employee's motivation. It can make them feel that they are respected. They're making a proper effort. They are earning what they're getting, and they are entitled to the respect. It should involve positive and constructive feedback to ensure positive development can take place. Reviewing should be a positive activity where issues that have gone wrong, issues that have set back the project, should be reviewed objectively, and sometimes the employee will have made mistakes and will have caused the breakdown. But there may be a reason for that also. It's unlikely it was done out of malice. It may be done because there was inadequate training, or the employee was tired, or the employee faced a complexity that and he or she wasn't sure of the appropriate way forward and got it wrong. So there should be positive feedback and support, and there should be an honesty and openness about the issues that were encountered in conducting the particular project or undertaking the particular project. There should be a wide range of training and learning and development facilities, if at all possible. It depends on the size of the organisation, clearly, but the employees need to feel that they are being developed in the roles, and they will have job enrichment as a consequence. They'll have a variety of tasks. They won't be focused in on one small task and almost be doomed to do that one small task for the rest of their lives. They will have job enrichment. They will be able to move within the organisation and take on new challenges. They have more training and more support. So it's a much more enlightened workplace, and the employees will respond by more motivation and more interest in what they're doing. Establish an employee work plan which supports development and organisational efficiencies. So during the review stage, it's important that the line manager keeps a record of what was agreed and what was discussed, and sets out a plan for future development. And so later, perhaps at the next review, perhaps in a year after this, they're able to discuss the progress that was made towards the achievement of what was agreed previously, and look at the issues that were confronted and the impediments to the achievement of what was agreed, and what went right and what went wrong, so that there's a much more openness, honesty, as I said earlier, and collaborative environment, supportive environment within which to work. A performance management system must be, or it must, I should say, it should identify and recognise and reward employees when necessary. It's important that the employees are felt to are made known that they are doing a good job. If they are, they should be respected for that, and they should be informed that the management praises their work and likes the way they've gone about particular tasks. They should be recognized for what they're achieving. It'll not just boost their morale and perhaps their productivity, but it will be a psychological payment for them. They will feel better as a consequence because they have been recognized as making a valuable contribution. Development of plans for improving areas of poor performance. Sometimes work areas are poorly performed, or there is underachievement in certain parts, and there may be a reason for this. It's important to work out precisely what is causing the issue. Why is it so badly managed, or why is it the workers are not performing well within that section, or what's causing this? What issues are causing this? So it's important to do some analysis, and there should be plans developed, and new routes, new ways of working perhaps developed and talked about. And it should involve collaboration with the employees. There should be wide discussion within the section as to what can be done to improve the situation, and then plans for changes drawn up, discussed, criticised, and then later the outcome of all of this discussion and negotiations and analysis, appropriate plans should be put into place to rectify any shortcomings. Support decision making in areas such as promotion, redundancies, termination, rewards and compensation. There should be support for decisions in all of those areas, and some of these are very difficult areas. It's difficult to make people redundant. They're losing their livelihoods. It's difficult to terminate employment. But it's also difficult to make promotion amongst a team that are working very effectively, and it may be seen as bad practice just to pick out one employee and promote that one employee to a higher grade. Why not promote the others if they were working genuinely as a team and working effectively? So there are enormous issues, and these are issues surrounding the people, surrounding the employees, and whatever decisions have to be made, they should be clearly articulated, clearly explained, and as far as possible the bad effects of these, and there are effects which can only be described as bad, these should be ameliorated in whatever way the organisation can. If people are going to be made redundant compulsorily, then they should have some reward system, they should have some support, some training to perhaps help them or enable them to find employment elsewhere. So there should be support across the sector. Support of documentation regarding legal challenges, for example dismissal, discrimination, vicarious liability. It's important that performance managements have supportive documentation so that when there are changes implemented or recommended, and perhaps sometimes these may be challenged legally by, let's say, the trade union or by some of the individual employees, the management need to show that they have followed agreed practices. They need to show that there is a fairness about what they're doing, and they need to show the rationale for the courses of action that they have taken and offer justifications for those courses of action and ensure that they're widely understood. A performance management system is only effective if there is support from all members within the organisation. If some employees or some managers are not fully committed to performance management, then the system will start to break down. It'll be difficult to implement, and certainly it can't be implemented from one side only. It does take two sides to ensure that the monitoring and the analysis and the data collection and the discussions and so on, that these are done honestly, collectively, openly, and that there is an intention to make improvements. There is commitment on both sides, supportive commitment on both sides to enable improvements to take place. Directors, managers, employees must all be involved in the planning and implementation of a performance management system. So it runs right throughout the organization, and it should permeate the whole organization in this way, because it's only fair that it does. So, for example, the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the organization, should have a performance meeting with perhaps some of the directors, and the directors should have performance monitoring meetings with some of the managers, and the managers will have some with more junior managers, and down to the line management and on to the employees. So it should cascade throughout the system, and that will enable the system to understand itself, understand what needs to be done, understand the requirements that needs to be put into place. It's a good form of feedback to the management, and it also enables the whole organization to understand what's required of them as individuals and to make improvements. In order to establish a working system requires time, effort and investment in resources. None of what I've said is easy or is cheap. It saps the resources of the organization considerably. It takes time to undertake, and it takes time to make changes and to support the different layers, as I've just said. But the results should be significant also. So there should be it should be seen as an investment, and in a sense every bit as much an investment as, say, buying a machine or buying a new computer system. It's an investment with a return. This time the return is through the human resource. It's investing in people and getting a return on that investment. Support and training should be offered to line managers who will be implementing the process with their employees. As I said earlier, it's the line managers who are the contact point between the employees and the organization. They're the first line of contact, really. So it's important that the line managers are adequately trained, and the training should be continuous. It should run continuously with supporting seminars and perhaps training events or way days or whatever the organization deem appropriate. But they should certainly be trained to ensure that they can engage in performance management and in the performance management system constructively and live out, play out what is required by the system, so that there are rewards reaped at the end. The performance management cycle, well, it's an ongoing, continuous cycle of planning, monitoring, reviewing employee performance. It's a continuous cycle. We say it runs every year, but in fact it runs right throughout the year. It culminates in a meeting, perhaps every year, every 6 months. It depends on the organization. When there is a review of the progress made, and the whole plan is updated and it's reviewed again in the following year or whatever, and there's monitoring throughout the period. And so it's not just a meeting where some ideas are put on paper and then forgotten about until the following year. This is something which is acted upon. So the plan is the beginning of the cycle. That's where the plan is. It's at the start of the cycle. What is the plan for the employee? And that may mean some sort of discussion about existing skills, competencies, ambitions, experiences. Getting a situation done, a situation analysis done on the person. Finding out what the person is like, what they've achieved, what they want to achieve, in a sense, their degree of ambition. And then identify and agree expectations. Identify what's realistic, and agree these. Start to put a plan together based on what is reasonable to expect. Then establish methods for measurement. How will the employee, in a sense, prove that he or she is hitting the targets that are agreed? How will the organisation assess the employee to see if the targets are being met? So how will this be done? What metrics can be put into place, and how will they be achieved? So the types of monitoring: it could be periodic meetings with the line manager, brief discussions, it could be observations made, it could be the quality of the work from the employee, it could be the productivity, changes in productivity, it could be new skills acquired as demonstrated by the use of different tools or different techniques. So there's a whole range of monitoring processes, and the appropriate ones have to be identified. Then begin the document plan. So we begin the document plan by review and evaluate. So this really takes us to the end of the document, but the end of the document is actually the start of the document as well. The end is where the people have made their plans for the year. This is what they believe that they can achieve. This is what they want to achieve. This is how the organisation will support them, and so on. And that's the starting point of the next review. So it's the annual review and evaluation. That's the starting point. It's the end of one cycle and the start of the next cycle. Then look at see if the targets have been achieved. This is when the review is taking place. So see if the targets have been achieved, and if they have, then they should be signed off. The line manager should be honest and open, and if it's clear that the person has achieved what they said they would achieve, then that should be signed off by the line manager. That's proven. If further development is required, then the cycle starts again. If they haven't actually achieved what they said they were going to achieve, perhaps they've tried to achieve it but they've fallen short in some way, then start the cycle again. And next time round, hopefully they will achieve it and can be signed off. So the monitoring of this is ongoing. It should be ongoing, and the line manager should be aware of what the employee is trying to achieve. There should be constant support and recommendations and suggestions and discussions, trying to nudge the person towards achieving the targets that were agreed. And this monitoring is ongoing throughout the year. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of progress, continuous feedback and recommendations as to how the employee is working and how the job is going, and again what improvements can be made, and so on. And try to identify errors and take corrective action so that the employee learns from the errors and corrective action can be set in place, and a more refined learning process developed. The employee knows what to focus in on, what to do, and how to do it more precisely. And of course the monitoring goes back to the review and evaluation. The review and evaluation goes back to begin the document plan, and document plan is what's monitored. So there we have the performance management cycle. The plan, well, the planning stage is the communication effort in which it's two-way communications effort in which the line manager will work with the employee to identify development needs. So the line manager works with the employee, identifies the development needs, tries to get the resources to develop the employee, tries to encourage the employee to engage in certain activities and so on to try and develop those skills. Review the employee's job description against the employee's skills, experiences and capabilities. In other words, make sure that the right employee is in the right job. Given the skills, competencies, aptitude, mental disposition of that person, make sure that they're doing the right tasks, that they're suited to do the tasks, and that they are actually interested in the tasks, that they are applying themselves diligently to achieve the objectives. It may be that they haven't got the personal characteristics, they haven't got the motivation, or they haven't got the aptitude to perform certain tasks, and therefore the effort in developing the employees within that role is really wasted, and the employee should be moved to a role that suits his or her abilities. Now that means, it doesn't mean necessarily that the employee is moved to a lower grade of work. It could be moved upwards to a more advanced type of work, because sometimes employees may be demotivated and not working very hard because they don't find the job challenging, they don't find the job that interesting. The job needs to be bigger and more complex to really engage them. So sometimes it's moving employees upwards rather than downwards. It depends. Work with the employees to develop a plan which outlines key development areas, setting targets, review dates and any training opportunities. It's important that the employee is consulted. It's important that the employee knows what the organisation is thinking and what's expected of him or her, and try to outline key development areas. Have a starting date for the development plan to be implemented, and have an end date where it will be reviewed, and have review days, miniature review days throughout that period where progress can be assessed and feedback, constructive feedback, can be given to the employee as to how they are developing. And also look to see what other training aids are available and that could be made available to the employee to help him or her to achieve what's been required. So it's the second part is the working plan must be in accordance with the organization's strategic direction, goal and vision. It's important that the working plan subscribes to the corporate objective. If it doesn't, it's pulling in the wrong direction. It's pulling the organization in the wrong direction. It's a waste of effort. And if we imagine the organization being made up of different sections with different employees under different performance management systems, all pulling in different directions, that organization is doomed. So it should be moving in the same direction as the overall organization. So the development, the performance management system, the development plan for the individual should subscribe to the strategic objection, the attainment of the strategic direction on goal and vision of the organization. The work plan must include a set of SMART targets and the employee's long-term career aspirations. The SMART targets, so that's an anagram. It means SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, or sometimes people say agreed, So A could be achievable or agreed, realistic, and time-based. Smart is the subject matter of a separate video on the course, so I'm not going to go into it here. But essentially, the work plan must include a set of SMART targets and the employer's long-term career aspirations. The targets must be measurable, they must be specific, they must be clear, they must be measurable, they must be achievable. It's pointless asking people to achieve something that can't be achieved. That's preposterous. So sometimes it's agreed. They say, instead of saying achievable, people say agreed targets. Agreed means that both sides agree that it can be done. They must be realistic as well. The tasks that are given to individuals must be realistic. They must be capable of achieving those, and it must be time-based. There must be an end date. They can't go on forever, so it must be achieved by a certain date. There must be at least 4 or 5 areas of development which the employee and manager agree to focus and measure success. Generally speaking, when the development plan is worked out between management and the employee, they should set out several objectives, if you like, mini objectives that must be achieved over that period. And the employee may achieve some, fall short on others, show good progress on some, and complete confusion with others. So the employee is able to take back at the final meeting some success, perhaps some failures, and some areas which simply were confusing and need to be elaborated. But it's good for morale if they can show some success. So instead of agreeing one objective for the whole year, and then if the employee fails to meet that, the employee is devastated. It's a complete failure. It's best if they have mini tasks. These mini tasks may all, of course, add up to some one big task later, maybe combined in some way. But try to organize it so that there are mini tasks set out for the employee, and the employee can then perhaps achieve some, ideally achieve all of them, of course, but achieve some, and would have something to be proud of at the final meeting. So performance management should be sensitive to the individual in that sense. Monitoring. Well, effective performance management relies on continuous monitoring of employee progress. If it is performance management, clearly it must be monitored. And it should be done, again, without appearing unduly interventionist or critical. Ideally done from a supportive perspective. The monitoring should be observations, it should be discussions with the employee, looking at overall performance in terms of quality and output, and tasks achieved and new skills acquired. So it should be monitoring of that type of development. Monitoring can take the form of, as I said, of observation, achievements and outcomes which have suggested that the employee is making positive progress. And that's constructive. If the monitoring shows weaknesses, then there is time to address those and find new ways of addressing them, and again, being supportive to the employee. Monitoring ensures that the employee is working towards their targets, is capable of working in group dynamics, and has adjusted to the work culture. So monitoring shows the employee that they're important. Management is taking time to look into how they're doing and how well they're doing, and giving them support and suggestions and recommendations, and offering training courses where possible, and they're not left to their own devices. They are being corrected where there are mistakes and shown the right way to go about it, and it's just a supportive environment. During the monitoring stage, management must make arrangements for regular meetings with the employees. It's imperative that the employees have time to talk to the management, or are given time to talk to the management to review their progress and their performance. It's important to assess progress made towards performance objectives and the need for extra training. It may be the employee suggests that he or she simply can't move forward because they don't have the skills. They don't know how to do this. They've never encountered anything like this before, and for this reason they may need mentoring or the advice of some senior person in the organisation, or perhaps be sent on a particular course. It's also the case that you must identify and overcome any barriers that may hinder performance. Sometimes employees may be reluctant to show initiative. They're afraid of failure. They're embarrassed. They're afraid they'll be laughed at, or they will cost the company money by making mistakes if they show initiative. So they need to have the confidence to try to work towards the achievement of the targets set, and that may require intervention by a line manager who may have to spend time with that employee to give them the confidence that if they do certain processes they are doing good work and they know that that is the way to do it. There should be constructive feedback on progress. As I said, constructive feedback is positive. It leads to a better attitude of the employee, more motivation, a greater understanding of the nature of the business in which they find themselves, and they may be more settled, more prepared to stay in that organisation, and the organisation will benefit by improving the skills of its employees and not having to recruit new employees due to people moving on because they were disgruntled or unhappy about the working conditions in the business. Review any necessary changes to employees' work plan. This may be regarding a change in work role or change in organisational goals. It's important to look at the employee's work plan to make sure that it is reasonable, it is achievable, like we said in the context of the SMART objectives. It's achievable and it's realistic. It's not asking the employee to do something which is not achievable. It's beyond human endeavour. It can't be done. So it's making sure that the employee knows that the organisation is sympathetic to his or her condition. They understand the condition. They understand the situation the employee is working in. And there may be times when the work role has to be changed. And sometimes the organisational goals will change, and that will change everything. Perhaps that may cascade through the organisation also, leading to changes all the way down. So they know they're working in a dynamic environment, one which may change, and also that they themselves may need to change roles just for job enrichment and more motivation. And it's necessary to review this and discuss it with the line manager and make sure that it's built into the performance management system and that the records reflect what the employee says, as well as what the line manager has agreed with the employee. Review. Well, a review of appraisal is arranged every, let's say, 6 months to a year. The purpose of the review is to discuss progress made towards achievements. So it's quite a simple purpose: to review to the extent to which the employee has met what he or she set out at the beginning to achieve, to review the progress. It may be the employee has completed everything, or it may be that there are still big issues remaining, but the purpose of the review meeting is to identify these. The review is also a self-assessment for the employee. Some organisations expect the employees to take part in skills audits and completing development plans. Sometimes the employee are asked to fill out a development plan for themselves, and that can be compared with what the organisation would expect them to achieve in that time period, and any variance between the two could be the subject for discussion. So it's looking at the employee, looking at the skills and monitoring the skills to make sure that they are being developed at the proper pace and with good understanding. The appraisals help employees identify their performance and any gaps in their development. Again, done in a constructive fashion. During the appraisal stage, employees and managers will assess employee accomplishment, progress made towards the achievement of goals, and assessment of individual goals. So during the appraisal stage there will be a discussion of what has been achieved, what's the progress to date on certain aspects of the development plan that was agreed previously, any issues, any failures, what skills have been picked up, what skills need to be acquired, and look also into the more psychological issues, the areas that may be inhibiting development of the employee. For example, as I said earlier, fear of failure, which could be a real issue for the employee. Fear that they're going to let themselves down, or let the organisation down, or let the line manager down. Identify any areas or challenges encountered during the course of the performance plan. So areas which were challenging, which were difficult, these should be particularly picked out and discussed, because those are the ones who are taking the employee to the limit. So it's important to discuss those to see if the employee is settling within the work, if the employee is happy with the environment in which he or she finds him or herself, but then works so that they can focus, I should say. They work and focus on the achievement of the performance objectives, so they don't have to worry about the environment or the issues associated with the environment in which they're working. So it's looking at the development of the individual and looking at what they find difficult and trying to support them in that. Offer training and development solutions if necessary. It depends on the size of the organisation and whether the organisation can afford training. Not all can, but if they can, offer training and development solutions if necessary and if they're available. Sometimes organisations can't afford it, but local technical colleges and local colleges of all sorts may be available, and maybe it's just a question of designing flexible working practices to enable the employee to leave early some nights or some evenings and go to attend classes in some of those educational institutions where skills can be developed. And that could be a cheap way of doing it. Or perhaps allowing the employee to have a day off every week to attend a course. It may seem very supportive and very luxurious solution, not a costly solution, but in fact in the long run it may be quite a cheap way of getting good sets of employees with good skills who are loyal to the organisation, who respect the organisation because it gave them that opportunity. The final review stage will assess the employer has met the targets. It's important that all the targets are met. This will be this will enhance, I should say, the employees' self-assessment. It will enhance their view of themselves and their self-worth. They have achieved everything. Everything that was asked of them, they've done it and they've achieved it. So they will feel much better. So it's important that even the most difficult tasks will be looked at very precisely, solutions found, and when the employee completes the tasks, they will feel much better. If the employee has achieved targets, the line manager will sign them off. Once they're achieved, the line manager will sign off that skill and or that target, and the person should be congratulated for achieving it, because that was a job well done. However, if the employee and manager feel that further development is necessary, then the performance management system will start again. And that is not a problem. That's just starting it over to make sure that the employee is totally familiar with the objectives of the business and what's required of him or her, and it leads to greater consolidation of the skills that have been acquired to date, and further enhancement of those skills will lead to the achievement of the targets that were originally set out. So it may not be a big problem, just simply restarting the program again, and this time the employee will perhaps even have more motivation to achieve what was required. So these are some ideas about the performance management system and the use of the performance management system, and having appraisal systems in place, and using the appraisal system to enable the organization to become more productive, become a more interesting place to work, and enable the employees to, in a sense, enjoy working there. So the organization doesn't have to face constant recruitment issues and staffing issues. There's a settled workforce that are happy because they understand the organization, they understand the corporate objectives, they're working in the same direction, and they have a supportive environment in which to work. Those are the sources that have been looked at throughout the preparation for this, and that's all we're going to deal with here. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.